Hello. Very exciting. A little nervous.
Don't be nervous. Okay, now hold on. How did I went make big screen me click on me, go live with guests, settings, layout, fluid panel. There we go. Oh, other way. I made me small or me big.
It's gonna look weird.
There. Hi. Yeah, Aquarius says we only bite on Wednesdays.
Ah, awesome. Well, you guys will just have to lead me through this, and hopefully we get everybody's questions answered, and hopefully I'm not too salesy.
But info is good. We like facts and stuff. So
Yeah.
specs and whatever that, yeah, I think that's all good info.
Okay. Yeah, and I'll probably step out of the frame so you guys can have the full visual periodically. You don't need to look at this mug all the time. We got to look at the beautiful machine.
Sales is okay, but we need info to find the best need for each. Exactly.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we'll do a lot of pro con. I mean, honestly, it's not a huge difference, between the two machines, but we'll definitely get into that whenever you guys want to get started, and I can give you a little background on who we are and some additional machines that we offer as well, in case there's needs for other things, right?
Sure. And just for everybody that's here, so this is Jennifer, right?
Hi, yes.
And then Nadia's back there somewhere too.
Yeah, I'm behind the camera.
Okay, so hi Nadia.
Hi.
Yeah, so she might pop out here if we want to do any kind of demoing. I do it, but she does it more often. I tend to be a little bit more behind the computer and talking to folks, and she does a lot more of working on the machines, so is a bit more proficient with technique than I am. So I'm a little rusty. I can get out here and do it, but honestly, she does a better job than I do. So she does a really, really great job. But yeah, I mean, let me know, and Nadia, if you want to help me if I'm not hearing questions. Do you want me to just kind of start with a spiel? Do you want to start with questions? How do we want to?
Let me talk about the wheels really quickly because somebody did say, look at all those discs.
Oh, all the wheels
ones
below? Yeah, so we do have extras below, some alternate wheels that we can either use. Sometimes people want to do like a special setup. And so what's great is then I can come out here and I can help them reconfigure it in case different spacers are needed. Different wheels may have different hub widths and are going to require different spacers in order for it to work. But maybe I'll just go ahead and start off with talking about what comes standard on the machine. And then we can talk a little bit about other types of wheels that you can use with our machine as well. So I'm standing in front of the 8-inch CabKing, and as you can see, there is quite a bit of space in between the wheels on this machine, which is a huge reason why people really like the 8-inch CabKing. The 6-inch can do the exact same. It has the exact same wheel setup, but because of that additional spacing and larger wheels, you can accommodate additional larger pieces, right? So on the left here, you're going to start with an 80 grit. So if you've got larger pieces or harder materials, oftentimes you will start there in order to grind away material more efficiently. And then when you are finished with getting your rough shape, doesn't have to be perfect at that point, you're going to move to the 220 wheel. And if you are working with softer pieces or you just don't have as much material to remove, oftentimes you can start directly at the 220 wheel. Then we have our 280 wheel. These are going to be the resin wheel. So these are electroplated wheels. They're going to do your grinding, your shaping. Anytime you're using an electroplated wheel or flat lap, you're always going to get a frosted appearance. There's going to be some deeper scratches. Once we move into our resin wheels, these are going to be kind of like a pre-polish. They're a little softer. They have a little bit of give here as opposed to these, which are hard metal. And that's where you're going to continuing the process of getting smaller and smaller scratches, it's going to go from that frosted look to kind of a pre-polish. It's going to be matte still, but you're not going to see that frosty scratched finish. So that's our 280. And then when we move over onto this side, we're going to have our 600, 1200, and 3000. And then, so that's it for the wheels. But for process, there's two other steps that we include. So one is going to be the canvas polishing pad. And I'm going to go ahead and just take that off really quickly. So this one has 14,000 diamond paste. So you can go from the 3,000 to this 14, and then that's what's included. You can always add additional polishing steps if you like cerium oxide. That's another really popular polishing option. I like to go up to a 50,000 polish with the diamond paste personally. I know Nadia does that on a lot of her videos as well. And then the last item that you're going to get, and I'm going to go ahead and just install this back on here. Super easy. It's got the 1/4 inch 20 threaded screw on the back of that, so you have a full face to work on. I don't have the 360 installed. Nadia, do you want to see if, oh, it's over here?
There's the flat latch on the bottom.
For the 6 inch, so I want to go ahead and talk about, just grab me one of the electroplated laps. Perfect. So this is what it's going to look like for the left-hand side. You're going to get a flat lap that's a full 8 inches. It does have a hole in the center, so it does obscure the center area. So you would just work in the outer areas, but you can see if you're working down here, you can still work in a very large space. So that's what comes with it standard. And that's going to be a 360 grit for what comes standard with the 8 inch. The only difference on the 6 inch is instead of getting a full face lap, you're going to get a, you're going to get a full face lap. So this is also going to be a 360, but this is going to go on the right-hand side and is interchangeable with the canvas polishing pad. So that's one of the differences between the 6 inch and the 8 inch is you'll get this 8 inch that can go on the right hand side, or on the 6 inch, you'll get this to go on the left. Now you can also use these on the 8 inch. So if you wanted to add additional grits or you like the idea of the full face, this can be added separately. So that's a really nice option, especially if you are doing flats. Having the flat electroplated discs is really excellent, and that's why we include that 360. So if people are making cabochons, then for the flat of it, that 360 works out really nicely. So
on that flat one there, do you have other grits in that?
Yes, absolutely. That's a great question. So in both of these, we have a wide variety of grits going from 60 grit all the way up to 3,000. So 60, 80, 100, 180, 260, 360, 600, 1200, and 3000. So I know that was a lot of numbers. So we have it on our website, obviously. But lots of different options, lots of sequences. Depending on what material you're working with, you're going to want to pick up different grits, right? If it's really hard, you might need that 60 or that 80, or if you've got a lot of material that you want to take down, you're going to need more aggressive grits. If you are starting with softer material, that 360, or if you're working with opals, I've even had people start with a 600 electroplated because it's such a soft material that you just want to be very careful and very cautious as you proceed. All right. Do we have other questions?
On the 6 inch versus the 8 inch, are the wheel widths the same or does that vary?
Yeah, that's a great question. So for the hard wheels, the width of the wheels are the same. On the 8 inch, they are wider, and I do have my little cheat sheet so I can give you specific information. Oh, do I have that width? Okay, so here we go. For the 8 inch, the grinding wheels are 1.5 inches wide, and the resin wheels are 2 inches. So for the 6 inch, all of the wheels are 1/2 inch. So you get an extra 1/2 inch width for your soft wheels on the 8 inch CabKing. And the other big difference, as I mentioned before, is going to be the distance between the wheels. So for the 8 inch CabKing, On this side, you get 2.5 inches of space between each of the wheels, and then on the right-hand side, it's 2.25 inch spaces. On our 6-inch CabKing, it is going to be a little bit tighter. There's going to be 3/4 inches of space between the left side wheels and 1/2 inch on the right-hand side. Other thing though that sometimes I think people don't realize is that you can amend your wheels and spacers. So if you did want to have even more space, you could take out, what I recommend is this, like a center wheel, or just move it down depending on which wheels you're using. And then you could just add an extra spacer to fill that gap in order, if you're working on a larger piece, in order for you to, have more room to move.
Okay, we had a question. Well, I've got two in the comments. One is, do you need to clean in between, like your cabochon, in between the stages? So if you're going from like the 80 grit to the 220 grit, do you need to do anything to the cabochon before you're moving on to the next grit?
Yeah, that's a good question. So you're always going to have water flow, and with the CabKing, you always are using fresh water. You're going to turn on each of the wheel and water, and I don't have this running, so it's not spraying like it normally would. You're going to turn on each of these in between, so you'll have plenty of water as you're working to wash away any of that dust, keep you safe as well. And so you do want to, turn this off, then you'd go to the next one. In between, what you're going to do is, again, you're using so much water that you don't necessarily have to truly clean it, but what you will want to do is you'll want to potentially dry it and examine it to look at the process and the progress you're making, especially as you go through the next steps. So from the 80 to the 220, you probably don't need to stop too much and examine it because you only have the 80 grit scratches, right? But once you go from the 80 to the 220, the goal is to make sure that on that 220 wheel, you have removed all of the 80 grit scratches. And so stopping periodically, drying it, looking it over, making sure that all of those 80 grit scratches are completely gone. And that's going to set you up for success as you move forward through the soft wheels. So that same step of making sure that the previous scratches have been completely removed on the following wheel before moving on, you really need to make sure that you are thorough, especially on the left-hand side. Once you get to the right-hand side, you still want to make sure that you've gone over the entirety of the stone before moving on, but you're not putting in brand new deep scratches, right? One of the tricks that I tell new folks, or if anybody's ever struggling with some scratches that they pop up later, which generally they don't come from later wheels, they were from the earlier stages that maybe we just missed, right? I like to call it the Sharpie marker method. So what you would do, again, learning mostly, but if you are also having a hard time with a particular stone, because that happens, after one of these first steps, dry it, color it with a Sharpie marker, then take it to the next wheel. And what that does is it just highlights those scratches and it's like a visual aid. So that way, when you move to the next wheel, you know, oh, you know what? There's no more black scratches or black lines. That means I've removed all of the scratches from that initial step or the next step. One caveat to that is obviously there's certain materials that you probably don't want to use that method with. If you've got a very clear stone that has some fissures or some hairline cracks, you will have that Sharpie marker can get below the surface. It can seep. So just be very cautious when you use that. It's a really great learning tool, but knowing that there's some limitations, I think, is really important.
Someone else had asked about assembly on it, that does it come assembled, which I'm guessing no, it doesn't, because somebody else commented that there was like a video explaining how to assemble. But so like when it's shipped, how does it come?
Okay, so the 8-inch and the 6-inch are going to be quite a bit different. The 6-inch ships in one box, 62-pound shipping weight. When you get it in, the soft wheels will be installed. The hard wheels, which are these grinding wheels, are not installed. So you will have all the other 4 on, and you'll just need to add those 2 just because those are really heavy. So we don't want to ship the machine with those installed. It's a really robust motor, but obviously we want to just make sure it arrives as safely as possible. With the 8-inch, it is a little bit different. It does ship in 3 boxes. You're going to have one box is going to have all of your wheels. The other box is going to have just the motor. It's actually shipped in a crate, so it's crated for safety purposes to make sure it is. It's a heavy motor. Shipping weight on that is 71 pounds. And then the third box is going to be the housing, and that's 72 pounds total weight. And that's basically going to have every other part of the CabKing in the box. So your wheels will be separate, your motor comes separate, and then the balance of the machine, components, accessories, instruction manual will be in that third box.
And then as far as the wheels, like all 6 wheels that we're seeing, that comes standard on either model, plus then those additional ones that you put on the ends, right?
Yes, that's correct. And so just kind of going back with regards to the assembly process, with the 8-inch CabKing, then you would need to remove the motor from the crate and then put it onto the baseboard, bolt it down, and then reassemble, adding the wheels, the spacers, and then putting the hoods in place. And then you'll set up the additional items like the water pumps, which we haven't yet talked on, but just to mention that as well, there'll be a little bit of setup with that, but really very simple.
As far as the water goes, I did a little bit of research before this. I had seen where you can have like 2 buckets, one with the fresh water for the intake and then one for your dirty water for the output, right?
Yes, absolutely. And that is one of the most important things with the CabKing when it came to market that was very different than some of the predecessors, right? Which, other people make great machines as well, but we wanted to improve upon what was available already out there. And so having the freshwater system, you'll have one bucket for your fresh water and then another bucket for your dirty water. And that way you're always working with fresh water. You're not reusing, water that has grit and, particle in it. And so it is draining out the back into the other bucket. So fresh water, we think that makes a huge difference.
Is there a way to actually hook it up to, say, a faucet as opposed? Okay, and then do you use tap water? So is there a way to actually hook it up to a faucet as opposed to just having the bucket?
So we don't recommend that generally. It can be a little bit trickier of a setup. Some people have successfully done it for sure. You just want to make sure that if you are going to do some kind of a setup like that, you really have to have a really good water regulator in order to control the pressure, the amount of pressure that's coming through. You want to be able to mimic what the pump pressure is. And so if you're doing a direct line from your water system, that can be really tricky. So you have to have some kind of a valve regulator.
But so then as far as having the bucket, then just regular tap water, you don't have to have like distilled water or anything like that.
Yeah, so I would say generally the answer is yes. We always just use tap water. I will say for folks who have very hard water, it will require additional maintenance for the water system. Obviously, with hard water, you're going to get a little bit more mineral buildup, lime, those kinds of things, in which case some additional or more often you'll have to maintain the water system to prevent any kind of blockages or buildup for the calcium or other types of mineral deposits.
And then just had another question out of the comments, which is, where is CabKing based? Where are you guys out of?
We're in Westmont, Illinois, so we're about a half an hour west of Chicago. And the people who created this company actually live in town, grew up here, and so very local business, local owners. And so the business kind of started primarily with saw blades and, selling them into the lapidary market. And through that networking and meeting different people that were in the business, the opportunity came about for the owner to acquire High Tech Diamond. And so that was the first part of the business that kind of started things, is acquiring High Tech Diamond. So we have flat laps and standalone trim saws available through that brand. And then once that brand, became part of the business, and again, learning what are people using, how can we improve on, other things that are out there. That's when the owner, the creator of our company, developed the CabKing. So he, again, kind of looked at what's out there, how can we improve on it, and he designed and, obviously worked with others in order to bring it to fruition. I believe that was 2009. I could be off a little bit on my dates, so I didn't double check my dates, so I apologize. And so we do source some of the parts for it out of Asia, and then we also source domestically. And then everything is assembled, additional parts are added, everything is tested here, packaged here, and shipped from our location here as well.
I didn't realize that CabKing, I don't want to call that young, but like in the term of like in lapidary and stuff, that 2009, that's not that long ago, really.
Yeah. And, there's been some different versions. And what's really cool, I've worked with the company for 7 years. So, I've been around for overall a fairly, good amount of the time. And it's really interesting when I talk to people who call and say, yeah, I've got, I think I bought this in 2010 and, I'm still using it. There's been some variation changes with regards to, especially when you're new and you've got a new product. In the beginning, you're going to make some small changes and improvements. So just within the first couple of years, there's a couple of different variations with the water system. But after that, there's been very few changes from the standpoint of parts. Right. So people who have had their machine for, 15 years, they're using basically the same. I mean, we've made little changes, but it's all compatible. Right. That they're able to get parts and pieces pretty readily.
Got a question from the comments. Is there an advantage to the direct drive motor and can it be serviced?
Yeah. So, it's enclosed. I'm not. I'm trying to think, that area isn't necessarily my expertise. I will say I did have a gentleman I spoke to the other day who was really excited about the direct drive versus the belt-driven versions that are out there. I mean, everybody has their pro and con. Everybody has their preferences. A little bit less concern about maintenance or replacements, that you're not worrying about a separate belt. These are really strong machines. Couple of things, if and when something might need to be replaced, a power switch is a pretty simple thing that folks are able to do. That's usually the most of it, as far as if a part needed to be replaced or repaired. I'm trying to think. I wish I was more prepared for that question. I feel like I would be able to answer it better. It is a 3/4 horsepower. Our 6-inch is a 1/4 horsepower. I know that there's some others that might have a slightly larger. There's nothing stopping these machines. And like I said, we've got CabKings that are out there from the get-go that are still up and running.
So that's the next one. Next question is, so an older model would be just as good as the new one?
I mean, I have lots of people who use the old ones. And again, sometimes they just need some parts replaced. Maybe that's, part of the water system. If through transfer of ownership, things can potentially, I've had people who are like, oh, I got, a great deal on this one, but I'm missing this part of that part. And we can typically get them those parts that they need and get them back up and running. Especially on the 8-inch, I would say, yeah. I mean, if with an older machine, I would still want to, make sure that you either test it or have the people run it so you can hear how it sounds. Honestly, that's probably the most important thing, is listening to it. Does it sound like it's, running nicely? It's not too loud. And when I say loud, I mean, but again, it's pretty rare for that to occur. We do have even replacement motors available. So if, 10 years down the line, things aren't working perfectly, we have those available as well.
I had a little note from when we started, that's the 8-inch model. What is the actual full footprint of that? How much space does that take up?
Perfect. I do have my cheat sheet, and we have this available. All of this information is on our website, especially under if you look at each of the machines, and it'll give you like key features, what's included, and then there's also the dimensional weight. Let me see if I printed that other part. It was on the FAQ. So about 2 feet. Let me give you the actual dimensions from the website. So for the 6-inch CabKing, it's 27 inches long and 13 and a half inches wide. So the depth, right back. So you're looking at about 2.5 feet by just over a foot, so 14 inches. And then for the 8-inch CabKing, it's 42 inches long and 16 inches wide or depth. Height of them is going to be a little bit more similar. We've got 14 inches in height on the 8-inch, and for the 6-inch, it's going to be 12 inches in height, which my eyeball looks like it's more like 2.5 inches, but I'm going to go off of the specs on my website. So, so pretty big difference. I don't know, Nadia, if you want to show the 6-inch as well, so you can kind of just get an idea of how that looks in comparison.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Another one from the comments. Do you recommend a respirator when using, or since you have that water flow, is that not really necessary?
Yeah, that's a really great question. Obviously, I am not a health professional. However, I would always recommend to protect yourself. Different materials are going to maybe be more problematic than others. All materials, lead to the potential of silicosis. The most important thing is making sure you're using plenty of water, and then, cleaning up. It doesn't have to be a perfect clean up, but you just want to make sure you don't have a lot of loose rock dust getting into the air. That's going to be where you're going to have a problem. And yes, I would say there's a wide variety of different options for masking. We tend to work in a very large warehouse, and we also have our dock doors are opening and closing a lot. So we do have a lot of fresh air and ventilation. So we are lucky in that regard. I would recommend, either, an N95 or a respirator, depending on, how much work are you doing? What is the area that you're set up, and what is your personal health, situation? So do your research so that you can make the right choices for you.
Another one that was in the comments was, is there a warranty that they come with?
Yeah, absolutely. So all of our machines come with a 1-year warranty, and we do offer additional warranties for an additional 1 year or an additional 2 years. So you can get an up to 3-year warranty directly with us. And I mean, yeah. So that's the warranty information.
Okay. Yeah, we've got comments about how the 6-inch is so cute compared to the 8-inch, and the 8-inch one looks like a boss compared to the smaller one.
You know what? And obviously we sell a little bit more of the 6-inch because price point. And when I talk to people, I said, what is your budget? Not only financially, but for your real estate, your space, your area that you have, right? Now the other thing that kind of plays into that as well is we also have a trim saw attachment. They both come with an 8-inch blade, but they are 2 different products because of the different sizes for the 2 machines. It has to have different components in order for it to install. And I bring that up because that can be also very real estate budget friendly, because when you install it, you're going to remove the right-hand side of either of the machines in order to install it. So you don't need to have a separate standalone. But the pro and con of that, obviously, is in order to use it, you have to disassemble part of the machine in order to set it up. So it does take a little bit of pre-planning in order to make that happen. But again, super convenient. Price point is excellent. It's definitely very competitive to a standalone trim saw. So that's a really nice option for a lot of folks, again, budget-wise, for finances as well as space.
Do you happen to have that handy so we can see it, what it looks like?
Yeah, I do actually have one here. It's not going to be assembled, but this is the version for the 8-inch because it's got risers here. All right, can you see that pretty good? So basically everything from here up is going to be the same. What you'll do is you'll install spacers and the blade directly onto the motor shaft. So that'll sit here. And with the 6-inch, it doesn't have the risers, right? We have 2 different blades that are available with it. It comes with a thin sintered saw blade. And then we have a secondary blade available that is called the super slicer, which is excellent for people who are working with either really high value materials and you're trying to minimize loss, or soft materials that you just need something that's going to be a little more like with things that are a little more fragile, right? So the super slicer is not as long lasting as the sintered blade that comes with it, but it's an excellent specialty blade. And so we had people in like the opal and turquoise community that had the trim saw attachment, and they were really wanting a finer blade. And so that's why we brought the super slicer onto the CabKing offerings as well. Really cool. So you do have, this amount of space, which I believe is about 2.5 inches, but you can remove this mini platform in order to get a greater height for cutting. The difference between this and a standalone, because the blade and the arbor are going to be up here, you're going to have a little bit of a limitation on how far you can go through. Whereas with a standalone saw, the arbor is going to be below the table height. So you may not have as much height on those, but you're going to have greater depth. So that's one thing to consider. Also, because this is a specialty attachment and it goes onto an arbor that has a 1-inch arbor size diameter, the hole for the blade is a 1-inch diameter. And so these are specialty blades for this. And I'll show you what that blade looks like. Let me go ahead and grab it. And so this is the sintered saw blade, and it looks like this one's used a little bit. You can see, actually, well, it looks pretty good. A little bit of use potentially. So this is the 8-inch blade. So again, it can be a little confusing because the 8-inch fits both for the 8-inch saw and this, 8-inch CabKing and the 6-inch CabKing. Just components are going to be different, but the blade is going to be the same. The area that you can cut is going to be the same. So that's kind of neat with that one.
Yeah, I've got another fun question as far as just comparing the two models. So if you didn't necessarily have a limitation on the footprint and you were just comparing the two, what would be pros and cons of like the 6-inch versus the 8-inch? Obviously the 8-inch has got a little bit more to it, but I mean, is there anything really particular that the 8-inch would be like way better for, or where the 6-inch might be better for?
Honestly, I really can't think of anything. There's going to be personal preference. I will say with an 8-inch, you could pretty comfortably have 2 people working on the machine at one time. I've had people add an additional lamp so that you can have one lamp on one side and one on the other. I generally don't recommend having more than 2 valves open for the water system. You could get away with 3 potentially, but 2 is not going to be a problem. So you could very easily have 2 people working on the 8-inch at the same time if that was something that people were interested in. On the 6-inch, it's a lot tighter. You really would not be able to do that. I'll be honest though, it's funny because even amongst ourselves here at CabKing, we may just gravitate towards the 6-inch because of the approachability. It just feels, it's so cute, and so I definitely have one of my coworkers who tends to prefer the 6-inch, and there's no reason. It's just a feel, right? I like both. Size though and space It is, especially if you've got larger hands. I do have feedback for, people who maybe have larger hands or going to work with larger pieces. The 8-inch is nice because you've got a little bit more wiggle room with regards to not knocking into the other wheels, right? On the 6-inch, until you're kind of trained, you may accidentally, knock into one of the other wheels periodically, which it's not going to hurt you. It doesn't feel good, but it's not going to hurt you. Okay, so I want to make sure we cover that as well. So if you touch the wheels, it's friction. It's like sandpaper. It doesn't feel good. It won't cut you. It will grind your nails. So that is another thing that can happen as you're working if you're touching the wheel with your nails.
We did have a question specifically about current pricing, which
Yeah.
I did look on the website earlier, so I know the answer to that. But current pricing as of December 25 between the two.
Yes. So the 6-inch is $14.99 and the 8-inch is $24.99. Those both ship with UPS for free to the lower 48 states. We also ship pretty much anywhere else in the world. There's a few countries we can't ship to, just because that's how it is, right? UPS doesn't deliver there. But we also, honestly, for the 8-inch, we'll do like pallet shipments to some countries just because that's the safest way to get it there. Most countries, it's fine to ship with UPS. It just kind of depends on where it's going. And we have CabKings all over the world, literally. I've talked to people from Guam to Mauritius to, I can't even think of where else, but all over the world. So we have a lot of people who are using these machines with 220 volt. We offer it as well. And that is, I believe, a little bit more. I don't have those prices offhand.
And then another question from the comment. Well, that matches what I had looked at as far as what I had seen earlier. As far as like the wheels on the both, your grits and everything are all the same. So like essentially there wouldn't be any difference in materials that you could polish between the machines, right?
Correct. Yes.
Should we see the questions?
Oh,
You
okay.
can scroll up and look at the questions because there were a few.
But then with either machine too, since you have those flat lap ones, you could do like larger stuff on either one, really, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I did see that somebody was talking about it would be harder to get a flat surface. So again, if you wanted to do flats, you can use the electroplated flat laps that are available on the side. I will say if people start on flat laps, they tend to feel like it's easier to do flat work on the flat lap. I think if you start on the CabKing and you learn on the CabKing, it kind of doesn't make a difference. I would say it's still a little easier on a traditional flat lap machine, but this lap here is a high-tech diamond lap, and so you can put basically any of our laps that we use on the flat laps on the left-hand side of the CabKings. So any of the 8-inch laps can be installed on the left hand of the 8-inch, and a 6-inch lap can be installed on the left-hand side of a 6-inch. So kind of versatile there as well. I have a lot of people who actually do have like a high-tech diamond flat lap, and then they have a CabKing as well, because they just feel like they can do some activities a little bit better on one versus the other. I've actually had one person who sold her All You Need, got the CabKing, loves her CabKing, but realized, hey, you know what? I actually really love my All You Need too, and I can do certain things better on my All You Need because I'm comfortable with it. But then there's other things that I can do a lot better on my CabKing. So she ended up getting another All You Need to complement her CabKing.
Are you able to turn on that 8-inch one so we can just hear how loud it is?
Yeah, absolutely. So I feel like it's actually a little bit louder than a brand new machine. This is not a new one. This is our studio. So there's a little bit of a buzzing noise that's not typical for ours.
Turn the 6-inch on as well. If you want to turn the 8-inch
Yeah.
off, and we can show the 6-inch.
So you're going to notice that it does take a while for the wheels to slow down. Were you guys able to kind of hear that?
Yep. It sounds a lot like my tile saw sounds like when I started up.
Yeah, so it's louder on startup. Once it gets up to speed, it really levels out. And then obviously when you're working on the electroplated wheels, it's going to be louder because you're grinding away material. When you go to the softer wheels, you'll still hear noise, but it's a little bit quieter. I usually tell folks it's not any louder than like a vacuum cleaner. Typically, you're looking at mid 80 decibels at normal like working range. So that's another area when we were talking about PPE or safety equipment. Some people also will wear protection for their ears because if you're going to be sitting here for hours, that's a lot of constant noise. If you're a dabbler and you're only working a little bit at a time, maybe that's not as concerning, but that's definitely another consideration.
Now, earlier you talked about the high-tech diamond, but you guys, I see your little DOP station, which I was for some reason, I was calling it a DOB, like with a B, but then I've learned it's a P, which that is from the Inland Craft, right?
Yes. So just to touch on that, I don't think I really explained that. We actually have 4 different brands. So we have CabKing, High Tech Diamond, Inland Craft, and then Tumblebee. So Inland Craft is primarily focused or serves our stained glass community. However, our machines also can be used for lapidary. Honestly, there's a lot of crossover between people who are doing glass work and lapidary work with regards to the machines that are helpful to complete the tasks that they're looking to do. And one of those things that is under our Inland Craft brand is the DOP station. And we offer this in a 110 as well as a 220 volt. We have it either just the machine by itself or we have a DOP station complete. And what's nice about that is it'll come with a 1/4 pound or 1 stick of wax along with 5 of our DOP sticks. And that's just a really nice starter kit. They're a little chunky and, obviously if you're working with much smaller pieces, you might want to pick up some smaller dowels to be the right size for the pieces that you're working with. So how this works, we have videos on it, so I'm not going to go too in depth here. But you turn it on, you've got your wax in the well here. It takes about 15-20 minutes for that to get up to heat where it's melted really nicely and so it's pliable. And then it's kind of like almost like a silly putty consistency. And so you would dip your DOP stick in, you're going to get a good amount on, you're going to have your stone on the side because you want to make sure your stone's not cold, right? You want to have it be a comparable heat to the wax, that way it gets a good adhesion. It also will work a little bit better if your stone is not highly polished, if it has a little bit of a texture, so it has something to hold on to. So you'll just, grab up a bunch of the wax, then, put it onto the stone, press it, to get it, obviously be careful, it's hot. So we usually have like a little bit of water to cool our fingers with and then pressing it and then cooling our fingers to get it to, and you can kind of see this one is a work in progress and all of these are works in progress, unfinished, but you just want to make sure you've got a good amount so that it is creating a bond between the dowel and the stone. What's great about DOP sticks is that, or using the wax, is it's very simple to remove and isn't going to hurt any of your stones during the removal process. Some people like to use other things like super glue. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I can think of, but basically like a glue type thing, which is great and it can work well for a lot of materials. Some materials that are maybe more porous, you don't want to use super glue with because you'd have to use like an acetone in order to remove it. I've also seen people use like a torch to remove that kind of a thing. So again, depending on the material that you're working with, you're a little bit more limited for those kinds of things. With the DOP wax, you would just put these in the freezer and everything kind of gets cold and shrinks, and then these will just pop off pretty easily typically. And sometimes you'll have a little wax left behind, no worries. Just, you can scrape it off or take it to the wheel and get a little bit, if there's just a little bit left, you can always grind that off as well.
And I've seen people using, like, making cabochons both ways, just using their hands, holding the material or using the DOP stick. It kind of seems like it's more just to give you like some control, a little easier grip on it, right?
Yes. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
don't have
Especially if
to-
you're working with smaller pieces, I feel like the DOP can really assist with holding on to the material and having a little bit more control. Nadia, do you want to speak on that? Because I know you've got some feelings there.
I used to use dop sticks a lot more when I was less comfortable with the wheels, which is helpful because like when you don't know them that well, you think it's a little bit more stressful, I guess, to use your hands. It also just helps with like keeping your nails more protected and getting
Maybe more precision.
more precision. Makes it
More control.
more control.
Yeah. Yeah.
But working with your hands is also fairly like easy to do. Like even if your hands do touch, like even if your nails do touch the wheels, like it's just like a little like oh oops moment, and then like it's like not painful or anything like that. But yeah, I mean the only thing that I would say is like
I think you have to be a little bit more, like, have a little more prep, right? When you're working with a DOP, you're going to have it prep. I recommend letting them set for a little while before you start working with them immediately, letting them fully cool and kind of set up. Whereas if you are in a hurry or impulsive, like I tend to be when I want to just like, oh, I want to do this now, then I just go straight to it without using a DOP. So again, having that ability, depending on how do I want to work, what works best for me. And I agree, though. I think when you're learning, the DOP station or the DOP sticks and dopping them can be really helpful.
Or did the wheel finally stop?
Yes, yeah. So, let's go ahead and do we want to show you the 6-inch as well? So it is going to be a little bit quieter. There's a little, because it's not as heavy. Oh, sorry.
your mic is right there.
I'm sorry, I'm so loud. It's a genetic problem. My family talks loud.
That's great for a video. So.
Oh, okay, good.
That's great
Well, especially when the machine's running. But I don't know if you can tell because with with smartphones, it does tend to kind of mitigate some of the noise a little, so it's harder to kind of truly get the real feel for it. However, the 6-inch is slightly quieter because it is a much smaller machine and it's running less weight.
Yeah, you can definitely tell the difference. Okay, and then we touched on that there was 4 companies. Do you want to list what the last one is?
Thank you. Okay, super. Well, let me just touch a little bit. So the Tumblebee is our rock tumbler. So we have 3 different variations. The base machine is going to be the same for all 3 of those variations. But what changes is the barrels that you can get with that. So we have both a 2-pound tumbling barrel and a 4-pound tumbling barrel. Nadia, do you want to grab me a 2-pound and a 4-pound just maybe even bring the Tumblebee over here. And so you can get just 1 2-pound barrel, 2 2-pound barrels, or 1 4-pound, and it's interchangeable. So you can run any configuration. You can either do 1 2-pound, 2 2-pounds, or the 1 4-pound, and that's how much space is on the machine in order to. Are they all plugged in?
They all have. They're all being worked on right now.
Okay. So just to kind of give you an idea of what that looks like for the barrel size, let me see. Let me get in the right spot here. That looks good. So that's the Tumblebee, and like I said, I apologize if we can't bring over the machines.
That's okay.
We do a lot of R&D type stuff over here too, or like I said earlier, if people have questions, they want to do any kind of changes to their setups, we do a lot of testing for customers as well. So we've got our Tumblebee. We actually sell those with or without a grit and rock kit as well. And what I like about that, I like the rocks that we include. They're made to work and tumble well together. So it's a really nice setup for getting started. Let me just go back to Inland Craft really quickly. We do have several grinders that are generally used for grinding down the outside edges of stained glass. But people will also use them for lapidary work. You can get do we have it set up on there, Nadia? With the glass? Yes, we do. Can we go over there to check it out? Okay, well, it's a little more difficult to move around, so I do apologize. So if you're interested in that, there's one of the bits that can be used on it is really good for grinding. You're just going to bring me the grinder bit? Perfect. On a cabochon or any stone that you wanted to maybe wire wrap to create a channel. And I do have some stones. Do we have the stone as well? Okay. So basically you can grind a channel around the stone in order to then wire wrap it. And you can either have it fully subset or it can be kind of peeking out. But it helps to kind of hold it. And that way you can really showcase the stone rather than, maybe potentially putting additional things to hold it in place that may obscure it. You can then have the back completely open. If you do a lot of wire wrapping, but you want to keep it kind of minimalist, it really can assist with that rather than to have to kind of create a basket for the stone with wire. Okay, so let me go ahead and show you this. If you can see that, you want to help me with it? My director over here is helping me, so you can kind of see how that works. And then, so this is one of the stones that...
Oh, yep. So you literally put a channel in around the outside of it.
Exactly. And we have a couple of different options for that. So with regards to, we have a 1 millimeter or a 1.4 millimeter, depending on the gauge you want to work with or the size of the groove you want to create. And then we also offer that in a couple of different grits. And that way, again, depending on what material you're working with, it may be better to have one that's more aggressive or less aggressive, depending on, the hardness of the material. So that is a really cool option for folks. It comes with a regular standard like barrel shaped grinder bit that may be helpful for folks in other ways as well. But it's a nice little extra item that can be really helpful in the process. We also have a bandsaw, which is great for doing like curvy type cuts. Some limitations with regards to thickness because it is a bandsaw, right? It's not like a solid circular saw, but it's a nice little machine as well. Works wonderful for glass and other softer materials or thinner materials. So that's Inland Craft. And then we really didn't talk too much about high tech, but I'll let you see. I'll let you go first, and then I can go on a spiel about that if you want.
With that bit, is there one for drilling holes too?
So we do not have one. Well, we do. It's a 1/4 inch though, so it would be quite large for most stonework. I would think it's primarily used for glass work if people want to put a hole in it for various reasons. So.
And is that machine does that something that sits on a table, or it's not like a handheld, like a rotary tool kind of a thing, right?
Yeah, no, yeah, it's a tabletop machine. It is only about 12 inches by 8 inches, so it's not overly big. We actually have 4 different options. 2 of them are that 12 by 8 size. Then we have a Wizard that's larger. So our largest grinder is going to be the Wizard 4. Then we have our Whiz and Whizling. And then we also have a new grinder, which is the Whiz Mini. And that is kind of a hobbyist intro. That has its own special grinder bits. So unfortunately, the groove bit does not fit on that particular machine. But the 3 larger ones, it does work on.
Yeah.
I know, it's a lot of information, right?
And then you were going to go back to something with the high tech.
Yes. So I do have the All You Need set up over here, so we could show you that real quick, just to kind of give you an idea of the flat lap All You Need. So this is our little flat lap. So in comparison, obviously it's quite a bit smaller. So the footprint is excellent for folks who, want to have, just something that's not going to take up a lot of space. Also, pretty darn easy to take it places. In fact, one of our customers does some really great videos where he takes it out by the river and works on them on the stones that he finds in the river, which is really cool. And so these guys have also multiple steps. Now, pro con with regards to the CabKing versus one of our flat laps is obviously you're only going to be able to install one machine at one lap at a time, right? So you do have to, stop the machine, take off the knob, take that off. But it's a pretty quick process. It's not too intensive to be able to do that. And it does come with 5 steps. You get your 180 grit grinding lap for the rock mineral version. We have 2 different versions. And then 3 smoothing discs, which are kind of similar to the resin wheels on the CabKing. They're kind of that pre-polish. And then we include a felt polishing pad for the last step. And for both the CabKings as well as the All You Need, we include a 14,000 diamond paste for that polishing step. And we have 2 flat laps. So we have this one, and then we also have what's called the slant cabber. That has a 45-degree angle. They both can pretty much do the same things. Some of the pro cons between the 2 options for a flat lap, between the slant cabber and the All You Need, if people are working with harder, larger stones, I recommend the All You Need because you've got gravity on your side, right? You're not maintaining the weight with your hands so much. It is a little easier to use the All You Need in a standing position because it is kind of tall and it does have that top surface. You sit, you would just have to make sure that the table is a little lower. Whereas the slant cabber, because it's facing you, is really ergonomically nice for folks that want to work in a seated position. Both of them have similar water capacity. The All You Need uses a cup system, whereas the slant cabber has a well in the back of it for the water, so it's a little more integrated. And then the water, similar system to the CabKing where you're having fresh water that you're going to work with, and then your dirty water is going to drain away, so you're not reusing that. So you keep doing that with regards to the fresh water. So that kind of covers that. Did anybody have any questions about flat laps versus the CabKing?
I don't see any questions, but a comment about how rock hounding and on-site polishing sounds fun, which I totally agree with.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you'd have to kind of figure out how to get your power there, depending on where you are and your vehicle and all that. But I actually have done that before. A couple of years ago, we took our little 4 or 5 inch saw over to a local park and did some cutting outside, which was actually a lot of fun. So, is there any other questions or anything that we didn't cover? I didn't really cover our saws. Really quickly, for the high-tech diamond, we have 3 standalone saws, depending on the needs that you have. Our largest saw is a 10-inch. Max height it cuts is 3.75 inches. Our 6-inch maxes out at 1.75 inches, and then the 4.5 maxes out at 1.5 inches. And it's a little baby one. It's super fun and approachable and good for, entry level work, or if you're working with always smaller stuff.
Is any of the stuff that you guys have available that you can use for bigger pieces or for doing like polishing a slab?
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously some limitations here, and that's where, because it does have this, you can do slab work, but it's going to be smaller. So you can fit on an 8-inch, you can do about 4 to 5 inches across, but your thickness is going to be closer to about 3 inches max, because you still need to have a little bit of wiggle room of movement, right? What's great on the CabKing is because with the full face lap, it's unobscured, right? So you've got a full 6 inches of space across. There's nothing in the center. So that is an advantage on the CabKing of using the full face laps, which I quite like. Then you can go to the wheels. Obviously on the 8-inch, you're going to have a little bit more space. I do find that's a little bit easier to polish flats on, the smoothing discs on here rather than the wheels. But if you get to a really fine, like 1200 or even a 3000 on electroplated, then you could even go to our canvas polishing pads, with either an 8,000 polish or the 14,000 polish, and potentially even skip any of the wheels for flat.
Got it. Yeah, we've had some pre-discussion about ways to, say, polish like larger agates or slabs, and
And
if there was something that would
there's
work.
other flat laps that are larger than ours out there, and they're great. They do tend to start at a pretty considerable higher price point than where ours are at. I don't know the exact numbers because we don't offer that, but it's a jump a little bit from these guys. The other thing I just wanted to mention with regards to flats is that electroplated discs are your friends, because you've got a hard flat surface and you're trying to amend it. You want to have like an equal resistance against it. When you put it against something that gives, sometimes it's not as good. So you want to just make sure that you get a very small scratch level in before you go into like a soft disc or pad, if that makes sense. And if people have questions about that, I can talk further about it another time, or if they want to, give me a ring.
We're now looking for someone in the DC area that can buy all of these things and invite Aquarius and her rocks over.
I don't know anybody offhand. Well, I did actually. Well, I did actually have a new customer that I talked to the other day who's in the DC area, but she's new, so I don't think I should. I can't call her out yet. So, but
we also need somebody up here in South Dakota because, like, we don't have a whole lot going on up here.
Yeah, I think you were saying something about how, like, on one side of the state, there's a lot more to offer than on the other. And that's true for us in Illinois, too. I mean, there's some areas that you can go and find some interesting things, but for us, going up into Michigan is where we tend to find a lot of at least proximity-wise, local fun things like Lake Superior stones or Petoskey stones, those kinds of things, which are local.
Apparently, I might need to just make a drive down by Omaha. Says Jay Jackson. He's my neighbor to the south, so he's down in Nebraska.
Okay. Yeah, and the other thing too, which I always try and suggest to folks, and Nadia was nice enough to kind of remind me, is do a search for local lapidary clubs. And I know that they're not everywhere, but sometimes you can be surprised. They don't necessarily always have a good online presence because they've been around so long, and there are some people who are maybe on the older side that have been doing this for years and years and years. And so, being online is not necessarily their thing. We actually have partnered locally with the Lapidary Club. It's called West Suburban Lapidary Club. And so they actually use one of our facilities here to run some classes and use our machines. And that's been a really awesome partnership for us. And I have, had other people that, gosh, you know what, I can't have, a big saw, or I can only do this and that. And so, or I just want to learn. And so reaching out to lapidary clubs that, it may be an hour away, but even if you can make that connection and periodically meet up with them, it's a really great way to learn and network with other folks that are, excited and are like, want to go out and find rocks. And as a lot of people say, do you lick rocks or whatever? So.
One of my best friends is a rock licker.
Okay. It's so weird, but like, we get it, right?
Yeah. I think we're voting in the comments that we're all just going to pack up a suitcase and we're all just going to come have a field trip.
Yeah, well, as a matter of fact, you totally could do that. If you guys wanted to come out, just give us a ring so we know to expect you. That's what we always tell folks. We have had people travel from many other states, and either they're coming through. I even had a lady who was traveling from Canada and was passing through and stopped and picked up a slant cabber on her way. Actually, there was a couple of guys from Canada that picked up a CabKing while they were here as well. So as long as we know you're coming, so we can be prepared, give us a call. We love to meet with, people, prospective, current customers. And so that's a fun part to the job as well.
Oh, we have High Tech Diamond officially in the comments saying, come see us.
Yay! Yeah, no, it's a lot of fun. It's honestly, I mean, not to, go too crazy here, but it's a good company. We're a small company. I wouldn't be here for 7 years if that wasn't the case. And I grew up in the neighborhood as well, so it's been a really good experience. And we strongly stand behind all of our equipment, and we work with people, and we're not perfect, but if and when things do come up, we're always here to be supportive and helpful, and work with folks to make sure that they're being successful, and that their machines are working well for them.
That's great because I mean, like I don't even know how I originally heard of CabKing because I've heard of it way before I like really got into crystals more recently. But you don't necessarily, the name has a high like presence and oh yay, thank you. Um but that like you don't necessarily think of CabKing as like, oh, just a small business, right?
Yes.
So um do you want to show us a few more of those other wheel options you've got there since there's so many pretty looking ones?
Yeah, so the two that I'm probably going to want to focus on, I would say, is going to be this guy is a textured wheel. And is that a good spot? Excellent. So it has like a hatch mark pattern. So this is intended to allow the material as you're grinding to move away more rapidly through the channels, right? So that the water and the grit can be moved away, or the stone, the rock dust. I've personally, I know I should try out more of them. I've only ever used the 360 version of this. I loved it. I love the 360 because it's really similar to the 220, but it's even more forgiving. And again, if you're working with soft materials, going with a less aggressive grit is beautiful because it's going to give you more control. I will say it is potentially, especially with like your 80 or a 100 or a 180 grit, it's going to be a little bit more aggressive than a standard electroplated wheel. In the 360, I didn't notice it much. So if you're used to the 80 in the standard, that might be more comparable to like a 100 in the textured because it's just got a little bit more bite to it than the regular. So that's one thing to just kind of think about. And then the other one is our res wheel, which I'm going to pull one of these that is from the 6-inch, so it's a little smaller. And this one has been broken in a little bit. You want to help me with that? Perfect. You do the modeling for me. So these do require some break-in because you see that they're kind of spiky, and so as you're working it, it's going to be even spikier when it's brand new. So you have to kind of grind it down for a good 15-20 minutes until you get some of that texture down. And it can take a little bit of trial and error to hit that sweet spot. These are really great for folks that are potentially like high volume, or if you're having difficulty transitioning from your 220 wheel to the 280 soft wheel, and maybe you just need a little bit more aggressiveness to it, or you feel like these tend to have a little bit more longevity because they're a little bit harder, they're a little firmer. They are a little spicy when you touch them though. So some people don't like that because with the soft wheels, the resin wheels, when you touch them, they really don't hurt. Again, there's a little bit of friction. These ones, if you touch them, it's not going to hurt you, but it does not feel good. So that is one area where, again, personal preference can really play a big part of it. But yeah, they're a fun upgrade if and when you are looking for something that's a little bit more.
I've got a question in the comments, which is the speed adjustable? I'm going to guess that that's a no, but I'll just have you clarify.
Correct. Yes. So it is a single speed, and I should have double checked what the RPM was. I think, oh gosh, it's like 12. It's around 1200 RPM. It is not something that can be adjusted. You do not want to try and reduce it. When you play around with reducing speed with motors, you are basically holding back the motor. And when you hold it back, then that power and that electricity kind of builds up within the motor, so it tends to run hotter. And when you run hotter, that's going to shorten the life of any motor, right? So no, you don't want to do that. It is a single speed. Honestly, though, it's optimal for most work. The only time that I've ever had any feedback where it might not be optimal is during the polishing step if you're polishing really soft materials like opals or turquoise. However, really cool trick when you're polishing on the end, if you work in the center area, your RPM is going to be a lot slower. So if you stay in the center, you actually are basically working at a slower speed. If you go towards the outside, you're going to have more speed, more RPM, more rotations per minute, right? In the center, it's not turning as fast. So that's a little trick.
How much do the different wheels cost if you're buying them on your own? I'm going to guess there's probably a bit of a swing on that.
Yeah, so with the electroplated wheels, you're going to have more variation. Generally, the more aggressive, so the most aggressive wheels are going to be more expensive. And I don't have the prices, but in the ballpark for the 8-inch, they're going to be around like 110 to 140 for the hard wheels. For the soft wheels, those are $100 each for the standard setup wheels. Okay. And then on the 6-inch, the soft wheels are $75 each, and the hard wheels are around $100 each. And we also have really great sales periodically throughout the year. So while those do not apply to the machines themselves, those are really great times to pick up on those consumable products at a really great price.
All right, another one from the comments. How long do the wheels typically last? Like before
The $1 million question.
I'm guessing that depends on how much you're using them.
Yeah.
And
So
then also, are they recyclable?
So we don't resurface them. There's, I think, one company that does, but mixed reviews on that. I mean, I don't really know specifics because I've not done it. You could potentially, I would say, I don't know, locally, you'd have to kind of look into it. It is metal and plastic, so I would think that you would be able to recycle it. But again, I'm not a recycling expert, so I can't say for certain on that. So with regards to how long they last, it absolutely will vary. I will say, generally speaking, the 280 soft wheel is probably the one that people replace the soonest. And especially when you're new, because when you're transitioning, as I mentioned earlier, how it's so important that you make sure that you remove the scratches from the previous step on the current step before you move on. That's where sometimes folks will go to the 280 wheel and maybe they didn't remove all those 80 grit scratches. And so they're spending a lot of time on the 280 wheel, either because of that issue or just because it's such an important part of the steps in order to make sure that the rest of the process goes smoothly. The 280 wheel, people, more pressure doesn't mean you're going to get it done faster. More pressure means you're going to replace your wheel sooner. So really being cognizant of using plenty of water, using the entire width of the wheel as you're working. So you want to kind of go back and forth, trying not to stay in the middle. We all do it. So we have to kind of give yourself a little Post-it on top to remind you to make sure that you're, using the whole part of the wheel, and then letting the wheel do the work. Again, more pressure doesn't mean faster. It just means more wear. So in the beginning, folks do tend to use a little bit more pressure. And once you get going, you'll learn how to back off a little bit and let it do its job. And that's going to make it last a lot longer.
I've got one more question, which I know this is probably going to be a learning curve on it. But once you're good and comfortable, like if you're just doing an average, I don't know, a Jasper or something, roughly start to finish, how long does it take to go through all the wheels?
Nadia said 1 hour, but I think you can do it faster. Well, and that's actually a really good thing because in the beginning, you're going to need to take more time. And I think that's a big takeaway for folks is, while this is there's a lot of science that goes into it. There's a lot of art that goes into it, and every stone is going to tell you a little different story of what it needs. I find that agates are a little bit. You want me to?
There's Jasper right there.
Which one? This
You
one.
know,
So Nadia, how long did it take you to do this one?
I'd say about 60 minutes.
Oh, it took you an hour. So she is very diligent and does a really nice. Yes, you do the modeling. Really, really diligent about the process and, taking her time. I probably go a little bit faster, and that's probably why I don't get as good of results. But yeah, so easily an hour, but again, with proficiency and really knowing your materials, you obviously can go and get through the process from start to finish probably quicker than that.
Yeah, Kimbaba. I watched a video from, I think it was from 21. Gal went through and she was doing she's like, start to finish 30 minutes. And I was like, dang, she's fast. And it was nice. It was very shiny.
Yes. Well, and also depends on what size is the material. What is the material? Some of them give, like, I've had some, like, where I go from start to finish and I'm like, man, I'm a natural. And then I go to work with another material and I'm like, oh, just kidding. I've been humbled.
That seems to be all rocks. That's I get that with the rock tumbling too. Like,
yeah,
you get even quartz. You get a batch that goes through flawlessly, and then you have another batch, and you're like, why is this causing so many problems?
So here, Nadia, can you do a little modeling of some of the different pieces that you recently did? And then, so that's Stitch Tight. And we had a customer of ours come in, and she was so generous with her time. And we did a video with her, and she left us with a couple of pieces. And this is one of the Stitch Tight pieces that she left with us that Nadia worked. And it's so gorgeous. I love this.
Stick tight with serpentine. We like to call that Atlantisite.
Oh, okay. I have heard of that. I have heard that other reference, but so I love that one. And then this is one of the Lake Superior. So we've got a gentleman who is a customer of ours who actually lives the town over, and he is the sweetest man. And he brings us, he's got so many Lake Superior agates that he has collected that he brings us his seconds, so we can have fun and play with them. And, sometimes you open them up and you get some really fun, beautiful pieces. So that's been really cool.
Is that the rock from the most recent video you guys posted?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
I just watched that this morning.
And then this one, I think, is a Montana agate. We have a lot of rough that has collected over the years. And so sometimes we don't always know what it is that we're working with. Because I'm not a gemologist, but I have, some good guesses, right? And this one just had some really neat, I don't know what it is, even though it's very simple. I love the gumminess of it.
I did have one other question, I guess. So the doming, which
Yes.
I was watching that on one of the videos where you had multiple rings. Oh, and do you guys sell the templates, the patterns?
Unfortunately, we don't. It is something that we offered years ago. And once we sold out, we did not re-up that. But there are several other companies that do offer those. So definitely check out the other, big lapidary supply companies, and they should be able to get that addressed for you if you're looking for that.
I'd seen the doming or one of the videos that had like your outer ring, like a middle ring, and then like a center ring. And so then I was guessing that had to been for doming of like being able to see where you're at with your doming by grinding away the Sharpie.
Yeah, exactly. So you can kind of have a game plan of, obviously there's different thicknesses of cabochons, and I am not an expert. I'm not a teacher. We actually have learned a lot from the lapidary club that we have locally. And we did a video where he showed that. He actually ended up doing a double-sided cabochon, which was pretty cool. Natty, do you want to talk about that a little bit with regards to the marking of it?
Yeah, so the first one that I do, the first shape that I do is usually stenciled. And then when I do finally shape it, the line that I do on the side of the cabochon is free-handed, and then the line that I do in the middle is also free-handed. It's just like where I think the dome should start and where I think the girdle should be on the side of the cabochon.
And then you create like a 45-degree angle to start your dome. There's another video that one of our dealers posted. He's Gotcha Rocks. He's got a really great video, kind of a setup with working. I think it's on the 6-inch CabKing of like Cabochon 101. And honestly, when I was newer and learning how to do it better, I watched his video to learn how to do it better.
What did you say you thought his name was?
His handle on Instagram, YouTube is Gotcha Rocks.
Okay. I'm gonna find him.
Yeah, honestly, if you go on YouTube and you go and you do a search for Cabochon 101, I think his is the first one that pops up.
Good to know.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. I can't believe that we talked for an hour and a half here. I mean, I had a lot of fun. I hope everybody got a lot of good information.
I told you we're a laid back group.
I'll come back in for a moment here. Where am I at? There we go.
Yeah, Vanna White it.
Yes. So,
does anybody else have any other questions? I've been keeping up with the comments, so I will need a whole PowerPoint for this recap. My recap is going to be fairly simple. This is going to be downloaded and posted on YouTube.
Awesome.
You gave us so much helpful information. Yes.
Well, good. I know I tend to kind of carry on a little bit sometimes, but hopefully it was informative and helpful. And obviously, if you guys have any follow-up questions, you can always reach out directly to us, and we're here to help and help you enjoy the process and the machines that we have.
Yes, I think we covered pretty much all the bases. So
Awesome.
I really appreciate this. You guys did great.
Thank you.
Good job. And I told you it's not that hard. You guys were wonderful, and great job, Nadia, with the hand modeling. So appreciate you guys joining us. This was wonderful. So
yeah, we appreciate you for inviting us and giving us the opportunity. So thank you. I really appreciate that.
Credit on that goes to Aquarius, because she was the one that tagged you guys to begin with. It was like, I don't know why we talked about you. I didn't tag you. She did. So.
Well, thank you, Aquarius. We appreciate the matchmaking.
So, all right. Well, this was wonderful, and I think that's a wrap. So
Awesome.
Thank you so much. You
Well,
guys
thank
have a
you.
great rest of your day.
All right. You too. Have a good Sunday. Bye-bye.